shall return. Tiffany.
Not the last one, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Terry Mulligan's not here.
No,
He's not coming.
the last email from him said he was
We had a resignation effective Friday in Office of Public Defense, an attorney. Terry Mulligan would like to fill that spot.
Effective Friday.
Yeah.
When do we get it?
Yeah, we probably got it Wednesday. There were some issues.
Will these issues occur with a new person?
No.
So it's a
Specific.
person issue.
Let's give a chance for the paperwork to go around.
It says here, I will be able to achieve the savings in salary and benefits by transferring one of our juvenile court attorneys and so forth. What is this savings to which he's addressing? This is not a one for one?
I think this person was like at step 6 and he's asking for permission to hire up to step 4, so that's where the savings would be.
Oh, step 4 is more expensive than step 6?
No,
Vice
step
versa.
vice
Right,
versa.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, but he's replacing the step 6 with the step 4,
Up to step 4, yeah.
up to step 4.
I believe that's what it says, does it?
I don't read it that way, but it probably doesn't matter.
Yes, I'm requesting authorization to fill the position with an attorney at step 4 or lower, and the current person's at step 6.
Right, and then he says the impact will be, so he's doing multiple
Yeah,
manipulation?
yeah, he's moving people around, but at the end of the day, there's gonna be a new attorney hired that is at step 4, step or less, and the step 6 is gone, so that's where the savings is.
But he makes it sound like there is an impact on the budget, and that's what I'm puzzled. I see a step 6 and step 4 being easier on the budget.
Right, that's the way I interpret it.
He says he's saving us, he'll save us money regardless if we follow his plan.
Well, yeah, this new person won't cost as much as the.
Now, interestingly, he's not asking for a reduction in his budget.
No. Because maybe the greatest attorney will maybe, I don't know.
He also mentioned once that he's going to try and add to the public defender staff.
I believe it has to do with the amount of cases and
Right,
that's dictated by
right.
the law, so.
But that's independent.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I read that he's replacing this step 6 employee with up to a step 4. So
And
there's
that's where the savings is.
at least a savings between the 6 and the 4.
It's not gonna be a great amount of money. It'll be,
Yeah, it's
It's
just that
really
the
negligible.
weeds with the other manipulations a bit odd.
I think his request for additional staff during the budget process is probably the first time he's asked for a new lawyer since the Supreme Court case laws came in. I mean, this kind of management is pretty typical, where he's been trying to create savings by adjusting folks and hiring at
Yeah, I
lower
think he
level.
has somebody with maybe some experience at his juvenile, and have a new person who's at a lower wage, just, stay in the office. I think that's what the manipulation is.
Okay, I'm okay with that move.
Video?
The next one is in IT.
Did Arnie, did you get a chance?
Yeah, he shook his head. Nodded. IT and, David and Randy are here to talk about the billing of that one.
Yeah, the network analyst lead position as it's currently titled has been vacated, or is now vacated with Rand's promotion, and we are asking to fill that position with a couple of, I'm gonna say, minor adjustments. The title of the job as a lead, we would like to change it to senior network analyst, and actually expand the job duties to maybe include a couple of other related items that are not currently either overtly supported by IT. Yeah, we're inheriting the 911 data center, which doesn't on its face change really anything. There are servers and switches, and just like our data center here, so we would expect that that person would have responsibility as a senior network analyst over those resources. But in addition to that, I think it's come up a number of times over the years, and we discussed it in this group, that we have a pretty significant AV installation over at Hall of Justice. We're expending some significant funds on that system. We're relying solely at this point, except for turn on, turn off, and hope it comes back up, for support from IT. We've never supported those directly. This is an opportunity to perhaps put some cursory or first line responsibility over those systems, so that IT can be a resource to assist there, but not of course be network engineers on that system where we have to rely on a vendor as well. But I can see IT with this position taking on some additional responsibilities that include some troubleshooting, particularly networking inside of the AV system. It's an opportunity to address that topic at least. So I'm looking for, we don't have specific language for those things, we want to discuss that with the board. But that's the idea that's floating out there, is the title change. And one of the things that does is the connotation of a lead. When you have a network analyst lead, it's a fixed percentage of the previous salary. And if we adjust the title, perhaps there may be some flexibility with that as well. If the board is, right now, we're leaving the salary, this is the way it is. But if we add those extra duties, there might be a request that there be additional commensurate pay. So that's just up for discussion.
So the 911 items are the items that we're getting back from Longview.
Correct.
Some of those responsibilities. And then the audio, the AV are items that I think we've talked about in the past.
Yes.
That currently we don't do.
They have tried a number of solutions by engaging a vendor from Seattle. Those people are days out just to get a response sometimes, and these are sometimes imminent problems with the AV system. The techs have actually in the past gone in and gone to the data room and unplugged things, repowered things in hopes that it'll just reboot itself and work, and that actually works most of the time on these older analog systems. But it's not a real bona fide support mechanism for the courts. They can't rely on us beyond just power cycling because of the system that we don't support. What I'm proposing at least at this juncture for this position, is with the acquisition of a large AV installation, there's a chance for IT to be more involved in at least being a resource as a first call with some training and understanding how the system's networked and working, and we can actually do some troubleshooting if there's a problem. If it gets beyond our knowledge, we have to open a ticket with the vendor.
So you're predicting the work involved with the new AV system specifically at the Hall of Justice?
Correct.
Or the Superior Court?
I'm thinking that if we have a resource that we hire that's, what's the word I want, that's qualified, I think that that could be addressed by either that individual or that and the network analyst by giving some training and becoming a resource for the Home of Justice for that system.
This is one of those de facto services we've gotten sucked into without it being part of IT in the past, right? Just kind of by default, nobody else is able to do it.
The history, which I think we've discussed it with the board before, the history of the support for the AV system over time. The board allocated funds to Superior Court and District Court, and they paid a third party called Efficiency, is the name of the company, to be their AV support because there was no AV knowledge or support mechanism in IT. It never has been. And so they paid that money to Efficiency for the times when it was kind of you pay them $40,000, and then they come on call whenever something might happen. And they looked at how much they were calling people on site and looking at the money expended, and they determined that they might be able to spend that money better elsewhere. So it severed their relationship with Efficiency, is my understanding. This was before I was sitting in the chair. Yeah. And then they decided to use that money on an ad hoc basis. And when I came on board, that money was being held and used for other things, not just necessarily AV. I hate to call it slush fund, and I don't want to mischaracterize that at all. I'd let the courts speak to how they spent that money. But I know that IT became, when Efficiency went away, when they would come on site, my understanding was the techs would see some of the things they were doing, and our techs started doing those things, meaning power cycling, but not the in-depth things. And then it became an issue when things started breaking, we didn't know how to fix them. We would be calling J-Mark or these people in Seattle. And it's been a struggle ever since, trying to find what's the balance of being able to provide support. I think it's a combination of things. I don't think it's just all IT or all a vendor. I think we need to step up a little bit. This is an opportunity to do that, and also balance that with a contract with the vendor on what tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 support looks like.
What's the impact to 911, though? I mean, with or without the position?
911, my understanding from Todd Dodgen, the amount of hours spent by Mike Sullivan, their network analyst, on 911 networking and servers was pretty minuscule. A couple hours a month is how he represented it. Deanna, I think maybe in this room, has said it was way more than that. I think after talking to Todd directly face to face and asking about those hours, I think that's misleading. Mike Sullivan, Seth does a lot of things, but Mike was their network guy. And I couldn't give you the number of hours, but I would say it's probably in the 20 to 30 hour range for the year. Maybe a couple, 3 hours a month on network related items. I will say that their network switches are Cisco switches. The VPN, I'm getting a little bit out of my wheelhouse here, so I won't sling the slang at you because Randy knows this. But that stuff does connect to other municipalities because it's all 911 related. And Cisco is important because of the VPNs, and that's what you explained to me. And so, to have Cisco switches, you have to have a Cisco ID, you need to be Cisco trained. We don't have any of those in our IT department right now. We have Meraki switches and we've had Delta switches in the past. So it requires some training on this individual's part to get up to speed on those resources. But in the bigger, larger picture, it's servers, it's switches, it's routers, it's the same kind of thing we support all around the county. So inheriting those things as part of this job duty for our network operations department would be standard fare, besides the training I would expect. Do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
But we're somewhat limited on who can actually get their hands on the work right now due to some union requirements.
Right now, the city of Longview has supported those, everything over 911.
Right.
The network side of things, the server side of things, and also the CAD, RMS, everything that happens on the software side. We've made the recommendation to the board, and you've approved us to be able to get a position that's currently a city of Longview position, make that a county IT position. That position that supports 100% over in the 911 data center as their CAD RMS coordinator, that's not the kind of duties that we would associate with this position that I'm asking for now. That would be the Mike Sullivan portion, the network analyst that spent, like I said, the 20 to 30 hours. That would be the work responsibility for this position I'm asking you to fill here. The other position would be the full-time Seth Hart position. Seth is currently the city of Longview employee. He's the one working full-time in 911.
And that application will be coming up.
I work with
Separate process.
I work with HR. Sabrina and I have met with Deanna. We've got a draft job description that we feel is adequate, and I'm sure that'll be forthcoming to the board to be able to post in-house to our internal 1262 union, and we'll see if there are any qualified applicants. If there are, we can interview. If there are not, then my intention would be to post to the outside with the idea that qualified applicants in the outside, including the incumbent, would apply for the job.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
answer your
yeah, I
question? Okay.
understand the process.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think I need more time to understand the whole thing. I'm very concerned, as you know, about bringing staff onto the county. And so, we haven't had a chance to discuss this in detail. I would like the opportunity to do that.
Okay. So you two haven't met regarding this?
We have not.
Okay.
One-on-one, Art and I have
You
not.
have that, hasn't happened?
No. Schedule-wise, he's been gone, I've been gone, we haven't
Gotcha.
been together at the same time. I was hoping we could actually get some light on what you had in mind in this meeting. But if you'd rather meet one-on-one first, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I need to understand a little bit more.
Okay, I'm not opposed to further information.
Postpone that till next week?
Sure.
So some pause. Here we go. You on that one?
David, you are scheduled for what, 11 o'clock with Dr. Luthi today?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Next one is building and planning. And
Woohoo!
I,
So I'll give you the big picture and then Mike can answer any building division specific kind of questions. We have a retirement coming up, which is actually kind of exciting. We haven't had anybody retire since I've been here in the department. Our non-department head secretary, which is a really bizarre title, that serves the building division. And so she provides that really important foundational administrative kind of tasking for the building division, preparing reports. She runs the temp dwelling permit process, so that's a ongoing renewable permit for people that have temporary dwellings on their property. So she manages that, expired files, renewing files, things like that, just kind of keeps them in line. Provides a pretty important suite of activities for that division. And she also gives some support to the front, cashiering and customer service kind of support up front when our front staff is either on break or at lunch, or on vacation if they're lucky enough to get one of those. So we're asking to
So,
retire.
yeah, so much of what we do is records management, and Chris has been key in that. It reduces the confusion. And historically, the quality of records management hasn't been what it could have been, and that position has been critical in bringing it up to date and integrating it with our new permit system. So, as these things evolve, it's been getting better, and we find this position to be necessary for that, in support of that.
Any other questions regarding, so this is a non-department head secretary?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have one department head secretary and then we have two non-department head secretaries.
and hopefully in the near future we'll change those things.
Yeah, it's a weird,
Interesting title. So this is, we had some conversations about trying to share some duties in this office because with Tracy moving over to OFM.
yep,
We were trying to look for some opportunity to share some work. Unfortunately, with some union.
right. So we'll
issues,
probably,
we couldn't proceed with that.
right, so we're gonna shift some work off of our planning secretary scanning and some of the file management stuff that both secretaries do, shift some of that over more towards building. Just because there's a whole lot going on in planning with the, planning all the hearings and the public notices and stuff. So kind of shift some of that scanning around a little bit.
I'm okay with refilling the retired spot, retired person's vacation.
I'm good with it too.
I'm happy to support Joe.
And on a pleasant note, not thinking about losing somebody, we will be having a little dessert reception for her next week, so I hope you all can come down, eat some dessert, and wish Chris luck. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be back.
Anything miscellaneous before? You had an executive session on?
Yeah, I got a couple items, at least.
Time, do you think?
Let's see, 15 minutes, negotiations.
15 minutes?
I don't need to be with you, right?
No.
Or is there one that, okay.
Before we actually get into our agenda, I wanted to follow up with you all. I don't know if you saw the email that I sent earlier.
Yes.
Okay, so was there any questions, concerns, comments?
So it sounds like we're waiting for feedback from legal?
No, we're working with Doug
Oh, yeah.
and Claire. Claire was gonna reach out to the Dyking District and see if there was some kind of interlocal that we could do, but the note made it sound like all federal processes were on hold, and they're not. It's only that one 408. So, gosh, you know, I notice when I get up here and all the sunlight's coming through that my glasses are really filthy. So it's only the 408, and it's until we either get the 214 process figured out, and the 214 process is supposed to be for public processes that have a public benefit, so they have an expedited permit process, or until the new fiscal year starts and there's funding to do the 408s again. So it is federal fiscal year, so it'll be October. So I would anticipate coming back to you all like in the week of the 20th, 21st, something like that, 2 weeks.
19th.
Yeah, thank you. So if you ever have questions, it is a very fluid, there's so much stuff, moving pieces with both of those projects, but feel free to, stop in and ask.
What do you need from us at this point?
Nothing right now, but when we come back, we're gonna be probably asking for policy direction. If you want us to move forward on whatever we can or not. So, but right now we don't have enough information about 214 to really even ask for that.
So you'll supply us options at the time
Yes.
from which we have to choose?
Absolutely.
Excellent,
Yep.
okay.
I'm more willing to support the elimination of roadblocks as best we can. If we can expedite in other ways, that's not the same as changing standards at all, but if there are roadblocks, we can get out of the way, so we can move that project along.
Right,
Get to final conclusion.
Right.
The better, so.
right. It's just important to remember it's only one piece out of many federal pieces, and we have to be able to establish that there's a public benefit. So we don't want to get sideways with the auditor or anybody else in establishing what that public benefit is. So that's what we're taking a little bit of time, make sure that we actually do that correctly.
Yeah, I completely appreciate that, and I completely appreciate what you said too.
So,
We definitely want to move if we can. And my impression is they could use a modest victory, however small it is. So they need that many permits. And they're looking for just something they can say, we're making some progress.
well, they are making progress, so we're moving along.
So a month, I think it was a month ago, you come to us and to talk about the timing or the order of the permits, and that the company had wanted the critical areas first as a small victory. And, I think we said, no, let's continue with our regular. I'm actually, with all the delays that's going on, I'm actually open, again, not changing the standards, but if that can be helpful
So our code.
I don't mind adjusting that
Right.
if that's
Our
helpful.
code is silent on the order. And in reality, if we don't move the critical areas before the SMP, we could be running sideways to what statutes require us. So, yes, we probably will be issuing the critical areas ordinance first, and I only say probably because it's not a complete application yet.
Okay.
So when their application is complete, the process is pretty straightforward. Ron, our senior environmental planner, will review to make sure the file is complete. It has to get in line with all the other critical areas permits, but the queue's about 21 days right now. So when it.
Those are for Cowlitz County
Yes,
only?
yep, just us. And when it gets to review, then he'll review that and issue it. So we will, we'll issue a press release saying that we've issued, but they get that first initial permit.
Okay. Thank you.
So that, it will be a small victory, but
Yeah.
But you'll
They
still
won't get
need to call out the National Guard to protect the building.
oh God, I hope not. No, I don't think that's the case.
See, you set up an announcement at the event center.
No.
And then issue it here, don't show up at the event center. That solves that problem.
Okay, good.
No. So our first thing is the shooting range. 1022. We've been getting some interesting signals from another department head about what we need to do, and we don't work for the other department head, we work for you guys. So we're coming to find out what you would like us to do for the shooting range ordinance.
Yeah, I think I had a chance to talk with him briefly last week sometime, but we've been asked about amending 1022 to exempt law enforcement shooting ranges.
From the special hearings.
Right, from the special hearings process.
So it requires us to write an ordinance supporting development of law enforcement ranges that are kind of exempt from the regular public shooting range thing, ordinance.
The public
Technical
review-
term.
The public review would ultimately be at the Board of Commissioners.
It depends on what you guys want.
I think that's.
Do you want some level of review? Do you want public input? What are you looking for in this ordinance? Do you want some sort of development standards, or do you want them to just be able to go wherever they want to go? What are you looking for? What is your vision when you think of law enforcement agencies citing gun ranges in Cowlitz County?
In general, I hadn't thought about this a pre-priority everywhere in the county, but with the specific situation where we already have a gun range,
Yeah.
how much of that's already implemented or that's gone to the hearing examiner, the mitigation requirements, I mean, with regards to noise, that'd be something that we could still say to implement for the law enforcement range, correct?
You can do those at any ranges, yeah.
Okay.
You can do that for law enforcement ranges. Our challenge is we can't write an ordinance for a specific situation. So we need to write an ordinance that would apply to the county as a whole. So you could craft it something like, in conjunction with a previously cited public shooting range or something like that. I don't know.
And my preference is we exempt the law enforcement agencies from this special hearings review process. They come to us instead. Standards still would kind of apply, and how they do it is up to us to make the adjustments for the mitigations.
So when you say standards apply, you're thinking noise and
I
whatever
think
the
I think
underlying.
the only ordinance is an amendment that exempts the law enforcement range from special hearings review.
Yeah, the path forward is
It kind of-
is varied.
yeah,
I mean, you
depends on
know,
what you're interested in.
if on one end, the minimalist end would be that it's a very simple ordinance change that says, hey, none of this applies to law enforcement ranges. And then that's it, there's nothing else going on, and it's carte blanche at that point. On the other end of the spectrum is an approach where there are set development standards for a range they don't go through the process, and it's just a matter of, reviewing the proposal to make sure it matches those development standards. So I think you have, and where in there you fall, obviously there's a big range in there, whether there's public hearings or non-public hearings. You go all the way out to that end, and you would assume that would involve the public hearings with the board. But if we're trying to get away from that process, it seems like the pendulum's kind of back towards this, where we want to be involved less. So it is just a carte blanche exemption. They're getting standard permits, building permits and things like that. Keep in mind at that point, if they're just carte blanche exempt from the code, that includes any noise or any other impacts that may come from that, because they will have impacts. Just a matter of whether we want to count for those or not.
So if I could make a recommendation, would be to not go all the way to the end with the carte blanche, just because you won't know where they're going to cite. So some sort of process where law enforcement agencies, submit to the board a recommendation where they would like to cite their facility. And some approval at the board level of that, and then just regular development activities as required. So if there's a amount of grading that goes on that would require SEPA, then it goes through SEPA. If depending on where it is, if there's noise issues involved, that will come up in SEPA, and we can address it through that.
I think that was what the last time when this first touched on. I believe there was, I think if I remember correctly, there was general support for the idea of having the law enforcement ranges go through a significantly reduced process, but there was still some concerns with getting public comment. So it's kind of.
So they would be commenting through SEPA on the specific elements. Kind of like what we saw with Bunker Hill. It's kind of a bad analogy, I think, maybe, but the noise and traffic and stuff like that. But they're not commenting on the general overall, no, we don't want a law enforcement range here. You're getting, comments on the development. That would be my only recommendation at this point.
I'm always very leery of things that force the hand in the future. And so I'm appreciative of what you're suggesting. At the same time, I have an allergy to all the effort that Cowlitz Game and Anglers went through just to build that thing. And there was obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And it sounds pretty good to ask them to deal with the noise and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, it turns out that it's almost an uncivilized approach of this neighbor complains this and that. In this particular case, we went through a pretty brutal exercise over a number of years. So and with some trepidation, I say I like, too strong a word, I could live with the idea that we exempt law and order or law enforcement with an extant gun range.
Okay, so citing it.
Or there's already an existing
Yeah.
location.
Yeah. Well, then the neighbors, there's some, I don't know that expectation is the right word. They're at least aware of, what it's like to live next to a gun range.
Yeah.
And they seem supportive. I mean, at that particular location, they seem very supportive to developing a law enforcement gun range. I haven't heard any.
I would imagine the assumption is the same standards are going to be followed.
That's up to you.
Because-
I mean,
No, in
yeah.
terms of the neighbors, if they would be supportive, it's because, it's working. So the implication is you follow the same
Right.
rules and guidelines.
From what I've heard, anecdotal, and Nick may have more of a handle on this, from what I've heard, the neighbors of the Game and Anglers range are very supportive of the development of the range's law enforcement, if that even includes, they have to do shoots at night, they have to shoot with different caliber weapons that, the general public isn't using, which is a real bummer, because it'd be really fun. But
No howitzers.
so I know what you're saying. I don't know that we would want to restrict them to the same, date and time and stuff like that.
Oh, and I'm thinking mostly
Noise.
the noise and cleanup.
Yeah, the remediation.
Right.
I mean, so there, as you approach that, yeah, anecdotally, I've heard the same thing, but that's also through the Cowlitz game and English filter, so I don't
Yeah.
really know. We didn't have, when we changed the hours of operation at that, we only had one person show up, and we expanded the hours, for morning and late night shoots at the time, so.
My understanding, they're more concerned about the non-participants shooting down the road
Yeah.
off-site, off reservation, so to speak.
So, there are some differences with the proposal a little bit. So they are investigating, for example, actually capturing the bullet with a bullet trap.
And
This
it's
may
out.
seem, that may seem kind of small potatoes when compared to the rest of the project, but the difference right now, for example, they shoot into a berm. They want to be able to pull out and be able to recycle, and you can actually get quite a bit of money off the lead. They have a bullet. They're looking at doing a bullet trap, for example. So, which is basically like shooting into a barrel, essentially. So it's significantly louder on at the downrange portion. It's hard to take. It would be hard to move the development standards for the neighboring range. However, I think taking from what you said, it sounds like for example, if noise is a concern, it is possible to set a decibel. You could set a decibel level using that range just as information as we develop the ordinance, and then you have a decibel level that's kind of in the code that they would have to meet rather than anything else. That makes sense? So,
Yeah, it does.
because it'd be hard if you, yeah.
But I'm
So
pretty
exciting.
confident law enforcement officers are very attentive to the opinion of the public. So I don't think if somebody came to them and said, could you restrict your hours to such and such? I can't imagine that they would tell you no. And I'd be willing at that point in time with the board to talk to them about that. And if we can do a change in the code here, we can certainly do a change in the code then. But I'd rather not cross a bridge and solve a problem that may not occur.
Right. Well, and it's not like they're gonna be using it every single day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a pretty limited use. Even if they have lots and lots of jurisdictions, they're still pretty limited use.
I think they're planning some pretty significant traffic, which just anecdotally from what I've
Yeah.
heard.
So,
What's the-
okay, so we can put together some draft language and then see what you guys think.
Yeah, and even though I thought that suggestion about the decibels, I would not go any more. I would not require that, I would say.
Sounds like we'll have some drafts for you guys to look at before we go forward, so.
Yeah. So we'll come back, make sure that you guys are comfortable with what we have. You may have a couple, we may have to do a couple iterations. And then whatever we agree on, then we'll take it to the planning commission, because that's the process that goes through. And then after they approve, then we bring it to you guys and you adopt. And then we can do whatever we're doing.
So the next planning commission is the beginning of July.
It is, the next one is actually June, but we won't
That's-
have
we
it.
won't have
no.
it.
past
So
that.
really, we're
And-
talking about July.
Yeah, and I think July may actually be pushing it, but we can give it a shot.
We have to notice the end of June for the July meetings.
This is
Quick as
construct-
possible.
This is construction season, that's all. I mean, the sooner we can get all these hoops hopped over, hopped through.
Yep.
Better.
So we'll just have to pick it apart and look at it and see if we can just amend what our current ordinance is or whatever we need to do with that. Okay, so,
And the goal there is only law enforcement ranges. Won't be touching or affecting other items inside.
and then, the planning vehicle. So we came about a planning, no, we didn't actually. So last year with the budget, we thought we had requested a new vehicle for our planners since or not for our planners, for our new building inspector. Because we had asked for the permission to hire a building inspector back with the original budget request in 2016. And that should have come with approval to purchase all of the stuff that a building inspector needs. one of the primary resources is a car to get to where he's doing his inspections. Somehow that didn't translate into the budget. Not exactly sure how that happened. We asked Matt to purchase a vehicle for us last year, and that didn't happen either. So at the beginning of this year, we asked to purchase a vehicle, and it wasn't approved. So we transferred the planner vehicle to the new building inspector. Planners are still out in the field at least twice a week. A good percentage of the permit applications that they work on require site visits. So we've investigated some creative ways to get them a planning vehicle. We've been renting. Nick's group, and I'm putting this on Nick's group, almost killed a rental car last week. Planners are making their site visits on undeveloped ground, so it's sometimes challenging to get to those places without four-wheel drive, as they were reminded in their little Ford Focus.
And we did ask for four-wheel drive, they had none available,
Yep, so you
it
get what
was-
you get.
And it wasn't hot rodding around the woods, it was a driveway / logging roads. A lot of our developments come off of things like that.
So we've tried the rental thing, it's pretty costly, and we don't always get what we've asked for. This week they're sharing, this week and probably the next couple weeks, they're sharing with Clyde. That was one of the suggestions that we're trying out. So, and then we had a third option, which we're currently also going down the path on, is purchasing a used vehicle from the motor pool, which is actually a used Expedition from the sheriff's department. We will not be leaving the light bar or the sirens or the cool bench back seat in.
I was all for the hard back seat.
Yeah, or the green hood. So, you know, they're removing all the fun things out of the vehicle and it's just a straight vehicle. There seems to be some disagreement in the cost that we can purchase the vehicle for. We were originally told somewhere around $5,000 and then we were told somewhere around $20,000. There's a pretty big gap in there. So other departments, OFM and the auditor and Matt are working on that, but we would like your permission to go ahead and purchase that vehicle for the planning division whenever we can get a good price on it.
If it's the lower price.
If it's the lower price.
19,000.
If it's the upper price, that doesn't save us any real money over going through the enterprise. And we get a new vehicle through enterprise. Through this, we're getting a vehicle with 150,000 miles on it that used to be used in police chases,
When you say
which is
through
way
en-
cooler.
When you say through enterprise, a new vehicle or a rental?
A new vehicle.
Either lease.
Our
They
other,
rent.
A lease,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what our other vehicles are.
But our agreement with them is the economies, the smaller vehicles.
No, all of our vehicles are
They're
four-wheel drive
SUVs.
escapes. That's what we've
We didn't get
purchased.
from them.
Yes,
Those are at lease vehicles.
Yeah.
We rent, you get what you get.
Yeah, what
You
we-
ask.
That's
what
what
you-
I meant,
Yeah.
when you rent, you get what's available at the low rate.
no, because all of our other vehicles are escapes.
That, and the planning vehicle was also used by the rest of the administrative staff. We had off-site trainings and things like that for days we didn't have site visits. So it was we put, anywhere I want to say from 700 to 1,000 miles a month was the last numbers I saw. Quote me on that, I have to go back to the email and check it. But the site visit portion of what the planners do, and we're not building inspectors, but it is.
It's common.
it-
It's several hundred miles a month, usually 800 to 1,000.
We make every effort when we do those site visits, because you can't trust what you see in the maps. The maps are red flags on them. So this,
I remember that discussion in the car, and it seemed like Matt came up with a bunch of possibilities, but let me ignore that. I like your suggestion of getting the used vehicle from the sheriff's department. That's
Can we
sort
leave the
of
light on?
paying a left hand and a right hand, it's a bit odd, but if you can use it, I think that'd be a useful outcome.
it probably isn't a long-term solution, but it's the cheapest, easiest
Just a
way to
couple
get
years.
us through a couple years. I think the biggest frustration right now is trying to figure out the pricing and the process to make that happen. So I've kind of sent out a little kumbaya email to try to get everyone together, because I don't think, well, talking.
Yeah, I could buy a car
Sure.
online, personal use, go buy a car online and they'd deliver it to me and it'd be done in a couple hours, but a government department buying a car from another government department in the same organization, it's been like
It's
2
unbelievable.
months so far, it's ridiculous.
So a difference of opinion and price between.
Oh yeah, and
the
that
car-
just started on Friday.
That starts, so we,
Who's
so when we,
providing two different figures?
Right now, the auditor and
so.
Matt,
The original price for the transfer between, was going to be 75% of Kelly Blue Book. So that came out to like $4,606.13. So, it's a 2011 Ford Expedition, high miles, but well maintained, you go back and forth, regardless, it's not a bad deal. It was like, okay, so we moved forward under that premise. We had kind of finally gotten the understanding of what motor pool rates and what some of the fees were for that we would not be paying. So we kind of finally had everything else squared away there, and it was originally kind of put on our radar to come speak to the board about this. And then late last week, it was brought over by Matt, hey, wait, there is the auditor's office is looking at a change in policy. You can't use the Kelly Blue Book, you have to use this depreciated value number. That depreciated value number is $19,000. So it was like, okay, well that kills the whole idea, because obviously we're not going to buy a car for $19,000. I spoke this morning with the accountant in the auditor's office, and it sounds like there was some policy changes or some discussion going on there on how to value vehicles. The 19,000 figure was correct, but he also noted that the policy wasn't retroactive. So it was like, so now wait, we can buy it as long as we do it fast enough? And so so that all happened this morning. So that's why it's a little bit of a different kind of message from us right now. I sent out an email that brought OFM, the auditors, and purchasing together into one email string and said, what is going on here? What is the cost of this car? And how do we move forward? And it sounds like that might have shaken something loose.
and then he sent me a picture of silos, and I was waiting for the silos to blow up, but they didn't. I was really super disappointed in the email.
So question, the depreciated value, that's according to a schedule, right?
Yeah, some scheduled the auditor's
Okay,
office.
the reason I'm asking is because the Jeep before it gets customized for the or the vehicle before it gets customized for the sheriff is whatever you and I could buy from the dealer,
Right.
or a lower price than that even. To argue that we need to pay for all the accoutrements that were added on that are not going to be taken out doesn't make any sense, and it sounds like that's what they're arguing. For that vehicle to be worth $19,000, another sheriff's department in some other county would want, then maybe they'd be willing to pay for it. But they're not going to get that from the public.
No, for
Oh, no.
19,000, it should come with a sheriff in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
And they're gonna, if we don't purchase it for $5,000 or whatever it is, they're gonna load it up to the auction, and we're gonna get $3,000 out of it.
Correct.
So,
And it sounds like the ultimate goal I think that it sounds like, and I don't want to speak too much for the departments, but it's, from what I'm hearing, the ultimate goal is to get to a point where we can transfer vehicles between funds with minimal cost. But for whatever reason, it's not working out that way.
Yeah, well, I know that.
We're waiting to hear the response. I really, at this point, trying to tell us, my email asked, what is the actual cost? When do we do it? And forgot the third question.
I think last year we worked out something with the local fire district to sell them some of our pool vehicles for very cheap.
right.
It gets back to that,
Yeah.
what's the left hand's paying the right hand? Strange whole thing.
Sounds
So
like a
if we
good
get
plan.
approval, we would like to be able to say, yes, the board already gave us approval, make it happen.
But not for the 19,000.
Not to 19,000, the low ball number, 5,000, whatever.
For my part, you have the approval
Good.
for something you feel is equitable.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Okay. And I don't have anything else.
Okay.
We'll have to practice. It's been an easy day.
It's early,
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
only 11 o'clock. I find the fun usually starts on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like I said, use
Remember I talked about the mine,
Yes.
and I talked to Doug Jensen. I've got to go and figure out whether there's a civil suit for the guy or we want to do an ordinance. It's early, I've got to go see what the deal is.
So there is they did, right, shortly after that, portions of that mining ordinance were broken upon adoption. So, we had moved forward with, at the time, talked to the board, moved forward, developed the ordinance, worked with the service mine operators, or at least the ones that attended our meeting, Greta did. And then we had a draft through planning commission, so it's a matter of going to legal before bringing it to the board, and then, there we are. So, and that ordinance hasn't, I mean, if we need to go back and do something differently and change it, or what have you, or, enhance, reduce, whatever, we would, just be rolling back a little bit, coming back to planning commission, which at this point isn't, it's
Yeah.
not being,
My intention is to go and try and meet the mine owner and say, can't you work this out? It's, all the fellow's asking is, let me know when you're gonna do this, and that kind of thing, rather than have to have us do anything. I don't know whether that will get any traction with the mine owner or not. I don't even know if he will speak to me.
Where is the mine?
The mine is the one by Hayden Park. It's a quarry, actually.
it's, and I believe the record, in those last discussions in 2014-13 timeframe, when they restarted up and the kind of the whole thing kicked off, I believe Alan Engstrom was the representative for the mining operation at that time. There was some confusion over the operator and the owners were different people, and then there was, I want to say there was like a death in the family, so it was that a third party was involved. At the time, it was Cemex was going to be the operator, and the owner was the Groats, but it was being handled by Miss Wendy Nelson. So, and then, but all our contacts were directly through Alan. I didn't talk to anybody on their side. So.
Does your department have a telephone number, I think?
What I have is, and I gave this to Mr. Stolges, was I have the contact information for the Groats and the Nelsons. But that was taken off of the Department of Natural Resources form in our records from 2014. So I can kick those up if you'd like.
I'd appreciate it.
Did the floods also play a role? Did they get flooded out at all, and the park got flooded?
No, they mined up the hillside, yeah, I mean, so, which I don't think they had, if they had any flooding, it would have been like their driveway.
Access.
Yeah, there's the Gale houses are right there off Klein River Road, and then they kind of go up into the hills, and they had it's a pretty good sized mine, and they had originally were developed in the 70s, so they didn't have a permit from Cowlitz County. So as I told Mr. Stolges, nothing I can really do. I don't have a permit for them, and other mines, well, checkered histories or not, are other mines that are active in their permits. They say they inform neighbors and the department when they blast. Which, all other things being equal, those mines have been really good about that. It's just as simple. We get in our voice notes all the time. So.
I had one other thing. What was the Coast Guard thing? There was supposed to be an agreement with the Coast Guard that was on the Commissioners' Conference notes. I've checked with Northwest Innovation Works. That's what was on the Commissioners' Conference, that we were supposed to do an agreement with the Coast Guard for Northwest Innovation Works. They
Yeah, you had mentioned
they
it.
don't have anything.
You had mentioned something about the Coast Guard.
And I checked with Millennium, and I haven't heard back from them yet, but nobody on the project knows anything about.
That's got to do with the ships and yeah.
So there's a
Wait.
WSA, a waterway safety assessment, but I don't believe they were gonna do one for, I know they're not doing one for Northwest Innovation Works, and I don't believe they're doing one for Millennium. So I'm kind of confused.
Yeah.
Do you remember who you heard it from?
I don't remember.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that. I
Oh,
didn't-
that's okay.
I'll have to look up my notes.
We'll hear about it at some point.
Or not.
Or not.
Well,
It
ironically.
may already be resolved. Sounds like it already be resolved. So.
Yeah. I don't know, weird. Those Coast Guard people though. Joe got it.
I
One
got
more
it.
Coast Guard person. Family of Coast Guard.
Oh, it's the family business. Okay, thank you. Hope your day keeps going well.
What time's our next meeting here?
Public Works 2 o'clock.
Public Works at 2?
Yeah.
At that time, Walter Pfister may show up.
Okay. Potholes.
Yeah, I went out there and looked at the road over potholes on purpose. Enough said.
Maybe we'll see Walter then.
Yeah, if he shows up. You saw the picture of the potholes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's about, you can definitely feel it if you're on a bicycle, you wouldn't like it. But- And the main contention is, should Weyerhaeuser be paying an extra load for that? Or the line trucks?
Right.
We looked at that once before, I think.
Yeah, I think Patrick with Public Works was gonna check to see what some other jurisdictions